I've had so many requests for this tutorial. Hello, welcome back. My name's Carol. Last week I showed you how to disguise crimp beads, and during that video I had actually made 5 bracelets, and I got so many requests asking me to show you how to make those 5 bracelets. So that's what we're doing today. We're making 5 bracelets in a really short amount of time. I'm going to walk you step by step through the process of making all 5 bracelets, and I'm also going to talk about everything that you need. There will be links in the description box. The top link in the description box will lead you to a blog post that contains links to everything I've used, as well as step-by-step instructions for these 5 bracelets. So let's get started. The first bracelet we're going to make is the bronze and gold bracelet. So what I have in front of me is the bracelet all laid out already. So we have some 3mm gold balls. We have some 6x8mm glass faceted rondelles with an AB finish, and the colour is bronze, I believe. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of those. Then I've got some little bead caps. Let me show you those. That is what they look like. And then I have some 14mm Indian glass beads. So I've got one of those interspersed with one of the rondelles and the bead caps. So I've got 3 runs of that. And then I've just repeated that up the other side. As well as that, I've got a hook and eye clasp. I've got 2 car lock clamps, and I've got 2 crimp beads. I'm also going to need some tiger tail. So this is a 0.38 tiger tail, and it is gold, the colour gold. So I'm just going to cut off a piece here. The first thing I'm going to do is put on the clasp and do the crimping. Now if you want the details on that, go and watch the video that I did last week on 4 ways to disguise a crimp, which I will leave you a link in the description box below, but don't go yet. Wait until the end of the video and you've watched all of this, and then you can go back and watch that one. So we're going to thread on our crimp bead first. I've actually got it tucked down in here. So there we go, there's my crimp tube, and I'm going to just give it a squeeze with some chain nose pliers and cut off the end. Now when I did it in the other video, I did this the other way around, but that's okay. Now I'm going to feed on my car lock clamp. So there we go. And I'm going to squeeze it closed with my fingers. Then I'm going to finish that off with my pliers. Then I'm going to take the the hook end of my clasp, and I'm threading it on. I'm just taking my pliers here, and I'm just going to twist that down to close it. I did this in much more detail in the other video. So there you go, there is my crimp bead inside my car lock clamp and the eye end of my clasp. Next, what I'm going to do is thread on my beads, and I'm just going to start at one end and thread on the beads in the order I've laid them out. If you are wondering about the board that I'm using here today, it's called a bead design board. Really invaluable tool for making bracelets and necklaces. All right, so I've got my first run of beads on there, my 7 rondelles and my 7 3mm beads. Next, I'm going to put on my bead cap, making sure that it's facing the large bead. So facing the cup part is facing the large bead, like that. And I'm going to put on my large Indian glass bead, another bead cap. Note that I did not finish the first run with a gold ball. I finished it with a rondelle, and there aren't any little 3mm gold balls between these beads either. What I'll do is, in the blog post that accompanies this, and that's the top link in the description box below, I will leave you a layout diagram of how I've laid out the beads for all of these bracelets. So there's my beads so far, and now I'm just going to repeat this to the end. All right, now I have all of my beads on. It's so pretty, I love it. And next what I'm going to do is put on my Carlot clamp. So this time I'm wanting to go and feed my tiger tail up from the bottom of the clamp. So up through the bottom like that. Oops, if I can find the hole. There we go. So I'm just going to run that down to my beads like that. Then I'm going to put on another crimp tube. Now personally, I prefer to use my crimp tubes like this. So we'll move that out of the way. So what I do is I actually go down and fish for my crimp tube. That makes it much easier to pick them up. So just running that down, I've got way too much tiger tail here, but that's okay. I'm just going to open that up a little bit so I can get my pliers in there. So there you can see, hopefully, my crimp tube is sitting on top of my Carlot clamp. So you want it to sit down inside the Carlot clamp, but you still need your bracelet to be able to move, so not too tight. Just going in there with your pliers and squeezing it. So I'm going to trim off my tiger tail and close up that clamp. And just popping on the other end of the clasp. Now, as I said, do go and watch the other video on all the details of how I actually did that. I do it in much more detail. So there's bracelet number 1, and it's got this beautiful hook and eye clasp, which is actually quite a good one to use on a bracelet because it's easier to do up than a lobster clasp. Isn't it so pretty? So that's number 1. Let's have a look at number 2. Number 2 bracelet is so super easy. I'm not even going to lay out the beads. I'm just going to feed them on. The first thing I'm going to do is put my crimp and my clasp on one end. This time I'm going to be using some more of the gold tiger tail. So I'm going to first go in with my crimp bead. And it wants to run away. Then I'm going to put on a my clasp, the hole of my clasp. So there's the loop for my clasp. I'm going to pop that on. Then I'm going to feed my tiger tail back down through my crimp bead. So that is what I have now. And I just need to come up a bit closer, and I'm going to give it a squeeze. Now, I'm not addressing the fact that I'm just squeezing my crimp beads in this video. If you want to know more about that, you can watch the other one, which I've linked below. So I've squeezed it. Now I'm going to trim off my short end. Whoops, wrong pliers. Now I'm going to attempt to put on a crimp cover, and you know how I feel about this. If you've watched that other video, you certainly know. All right, so I'm picking up my crimp cover in my Xuron crimping pliers. And the reason I'm using my Xuron crimping pliers is it actually makes it easier to hold your crimp cover. And there it is going on. And just giving it a squeeze. And I'm just squeezing it around a few times just to make sure it's nicely closed. So that is what I have now. And I used a gold tiger tail here rather than, I didn't have a copper. And I think that the gold works okay with this particular, with the copper clasp. Feeding on the beads, we are going with one of our little copper faceted beads and one of our beautiful jet and copper rondelles. And I'm just going to repeat that until I have put on all of my beads. While I'm doing this, if you're interested in making any of the jewellery that I'm wearing today, I will leave you links in the description box to the tutorials. I'm wearing my Dark and Moody necklace. The earrings I'm wearing are the dangle from the Butterfly Garden necklace, and the bracelet I'm wearing is actually the breast cancer awareness necklace that I made. So I'll leave you a link for all of those things in the description box below. All right, now I have my beads on. And I started and finished with one of my 4mm faceted beads, the copper ones. Gorgeous, aren't they, those beads? All right, so next I'm going to crimp the other end. Now I have got here a very well closed copper jump ring, and it is a 4mm one. So you do need to make sure that your jump rings are really well closed if you're going to be putting tiger tail through them, just so that they don't fall off. So I'm first going to put on my crimp tube. Once again going fishing for it. And then I'm going to feed on my jump ring. And then I'm coming back down through my crimp tube with my tiger tail. And I'm actually going to feed the tiger tail down through a couple of those beads. This is total personal preference whether or not you want to do that. I know some people do it, some people don't. I kind of go backwards and forwards, but I do kind of feel more secure when I have a little bit of tiger tail through the beads, and I think it hides the ends a little better. All right, so pulling everything up, making sure my bracelet's still moving, not too tight, and then I'm going to squeeze my crimp tube and go in here and trim off my end. That is what I have now, and I'm just going to put my crimp cover on. So taking my pliers, my Xuron pliers, and picking up my crimp cover. So there's my bracelet number 2, isn't it pretty? And there is the clasp. So that's bracelet number 2. Bracelet number 3 is a really pretty blue bracelet using the bead bandit. So let's make that one now. This time we're going to be using some silver tiger tail, and this is a 0.38mm tiger tail. So we're going to start off by putting on our clasp just like before. So with the bead bandit, what you do is unscrew the bottom, and I did go through this in the other video, so I'm not going to go through it really in detail. Put that on, then put on your crimp tube, and all I'm going to do is give it a squeeze. That is what that looks like. The crimp tube is sitting on top of the screw part of the bead bandit. I am going to trim off my wire, and then I'm going to screw on the bottom of the bead bandit, or the top of the bead bandit. So that's what that looks like. So I have here a 12mm lobster clasp, and I've got a 4mm jump ring. Now normally I would open my jump ring, but this one's already open, so I'm going to just hold it in my pliers here, my chain nose pliers, and feed on the end of my bead bandit, and also the loop of my clasp. If you haven't used jump rings before, I'll leave you a link in the description box below to a video all about how to use them. I'm just closing up that jump ring. So there's the first end of my bracelet. I love these bead bandits, they look really pretty. But as I said in the other video, they're probably best suited to necklaces rather than bracelets, but that's okay, we're doing it with a bracelet today. So what I have here are 4 of these 3mm silver balls, so I'm going to pop those on. So that's the first run of beads. Then I've got some beaded rondelles. So I've got one of those. I've got some of these faceted glass beads in metallic blue, so I'll pop those on, and they're just interspersed with the beaded rondelles. So I'm putting on 4 of those. That's what I have now, and I've got my 4 glass beads interspersed with beaded rondelles. Next, we're going to put on our cage bead, but before we do that, I've actually got a couple of bugle beads here, and I'm going to put one bugle bead on, like that. And then I'm going to put my cage bead over the top. And the reason I did this was to hide the tiger tail inside the cage bead. There you go. So it actually looks like I've used a blue stringing material. Pretty clever, eh? Even if I do say so myself. Next, we're going to put on another beaded rondelle and another glass bead. And another beaded rondelle. There we go. So basically a repeat of this. Then we're going to put on a bead cap, making sure that the bead cap is going to cup the large bead. And I've got these gorgeous 12mm pearlized beads. They are lovely. I love the colour. It's called Royal Blue. And then another bead cap. That's what we've got going on now. And I'm just going to repeat that part there with the glass bead. So another beaded rondelle and another glass bead, another beaded rondelle, and I'm going to repeat that 2 more times. Okay, so that's what we have now, and the rest of the beads are just a repeat of this side, so I'll go ahead and do that. So there's my bracelet all strung up. Now I'm going to do the other end. So I'm going to undo this end of my bead bandit and thread it on from the bottom up. Then I'm putting on my crimp tube. Just pulling it all down, making sure it's still moving but there are no gaps, and give it a squeeze. And trim off your wire. So there it is, sitting on top of my screw part of my bead bandit, and I'm going to thread on my top of my bead bandit. Someone asked me the other day if these had ever come undone. I've never had one come undone, but I guess they could, but I've never experienced that. I think you'd notice if they were coming undone. There it is, and all that's left to do is put on our 6mm jump ring. All I'm doing is taking my jump ring and feeding on the loop of my bead bandit and closing up my jump ring. So there it is with its jump ring on. There's my bracelet, and there's the clasp. So that's number 3. Now let's go on to number 4. Number 4 is a turquoise bracelet that I used toggle clasp, and the technique I used here was covering the crimp bead with another bead. So I'm just going to go through it quickly, as I said, but if you want to watch it in detail, watch that other video linked down below. I'm going to put my jump ring onto my toggle clasp. So I'm taking my 2 pairs of chain nose pliers, and I've got a 6mm jump ring here, and I'm just going to, it's already open, I'm going to feed that loop of the toggle clasp on, and I'm going to make sure that I close it really well. There's my toggle clasp with its jump ring attached. Next, I'm going to take my tiger tail and I'm going to feed on my crimp tube. So just going fishing for it like I did before. And then I'm going to put it through the jump ring of that toggle clasp that I've just attached. And next, I'm going to bring it back down and through the crimp tube again. Pull everything up, making sure everything still moves, but it's nice and close. And I'm going to give it a squeeze. The next thing I'm going to do is feed on one of my 6mm beads. The only thing you need to worry about with these beads is that the hole is big enough to go over your crimp tube. Now you could use any size bead here. I mean, you could use a 4mm bead if the hole was big enough. And you just want it to cover up your crimp tube. Now I'm going to cut off my remaining tiger tail, my short end. And I'm going to feed on my beads, and these are just alternate. So one of my turquoise beads, did I say these are 12mm, and one of my 6mm beads. And you want to finish with a turquoise. That's what I have now. I have got 11 of my turquoise beads on, and notice that I haven't put my final silver bead on yet. Next, what we're going to do is thread on our crimp tube and bring it down to the beads. Now it may disappear inside your bead there because the holes are big enough for it to do that, but I don't want it to do that. So what I'm going to do is just pull it back a bit, and I'm going to feed my tiger tail through that crimp tube. And I want to go down through at least 1 bead, probably 2. These have nice big holes, so that's no problem. Okay, now holding the crimp tube with my fingernails, I'm just going to pull everything up. Don't want to pull it too close though. So I've got my finger stuck in the loop, so I don't pull it too close. Right, now carefully, what I need to do is pull it up so that I have enough tiger tail to go through my bead and stick out the top. So just very gently pulling things up, holding on to that with my fingernails so that it doesn't disappear. It is a bit of a challenge, but it's worth making the effort. Now if you are having trouble, what you can do is actually grab another piece of tiger tail. I can cut this piece off now, and just loop it through there so that it doesn't disappear. So that might make it easier. So that's what I have. Just giving my crimp tube a squeeze. So that's what I have now. I'm going to trim off my end. Then I'm going to take these 2 ends of my extra piece of tiger tail and thread them through my silver bead and pop it down over that piece that's that loop there. Now I'm actually going to hold, I haven't got much space there, so I'm going to leave that on there while I put my jump ring on, just so that it doesn't disappear, and if it does disappear I can grab it. So I'm going to take my jump ring and put it through the loop there that's sticking out of the bead. And then I'm going to put on my clasp and do up my jump ring. Make sure it's really well done up so that the tiger tail doesn't come out of it. And then I'm going to pull out that extra piece. So there it is done up, and you can't even see where that tiger tail is coming out of the bead. Isn't that amazing? So there's the other side of the bracelet, and I just love this idea. I think it's really cool. Last but not least is bracelet number 5, and I didn't actually disguise the crimp bead with this one. What I did was I used my magical crimping tool to form the crimp tube so that it looked like a bead. So I really love this bracelet. You'll see why. If you've been watching my videos at all, you will know that I love the colour purple, and this bracelet is made from these gorgeous purple beads. These ones are Indian glass beads. Now they're 9-10 millimeters. They're quite different in size. As you can see, this one is quite a different size from that one, and also quite a different colour, but that's kind of what makes it cool, right? I use those, and I use some 3mm glass bicones. These ones are purple, have an AB finish, and they are faceted. As well as that, I have 2 magical crimp tubes. I've got a 4mm jump ring and a 6mm jump ring and a lobster clasp. We're going to need some tiger tail, so just cutting a piece of that. And then we're going to put on our first end of our clasp. So to do that, I'm actually going to use a 4mm jump ring. I've got a 4mm jump ring here, and it's open. I'm going to feed on my clasp and close it up. I like to attach my lobster clasp with a 4mm jump ring. I just feel like it looks a little more classy than using a 6, but that's my opinion. You do whatever works for you. I've put on my clasp, and I am just going to do up my jump ring, close my jump ring really well, so because tiger tail is going through it and we don't want it to fall out. Next, I'm going to take my magical crimp tube. This is a 2mm one, and I'm going to thread that on, and then I'm going to thread on the 4mm jump ring that I just attached to my clasp and pop that tiger tail back down through there. And pull everything up like that. Now I'm going to use my magical crimping plier, my favourite tool. Is it better than my one-step looper? Who knows? And I'm going to give it a squeeze, turn it and give it a squeeze. So there we go. Now it looks like a little bead. Now before we go any further, I do need to ask you, if you are enjoying this video, it would be really wonderful if you'd subscribe, hit that notification bell and give me the thumbs up so that YouTube knows that you're enjoying this and will share more of my videos with you. So let's get back to our bracelet. What we're going to do next is put on 3 of our little bicones. With this one, the hole in the bicone is too small for 2 lots of the tiger tail to go through. So what I'm going to do is just trim that tiger tail off really close. So there we go, there's my 3 little bicones. They're so pretty. All right, now I'm going to thread on one of my Indian glass beads, another one of my bicones, and that is the pattern until I get to the other end. Now if you want to make these bracelets longer, my wrist measures 16.5 centimeters, and so if you want to increase the size, it's just all about creating balance. So if you add one bead to one side, add it to the other side. Obviously with these ones where there is no real pattern other than one of each bead, you don't need to worry about that. So there is my bracelet so far. I just love these colours, aren't they stunning? So next I need to put my magical crimp tube on this end and my jump ring. So before I do that, I want to make sure that my jump ring is really closed really well. I'm just going to give it a little squeeze. It is closed, but it was just sitting up a little bit. So there it is. So first I put on my crimp tube, then I put on my jump ring, And then I bring my tiger tail back down through the crimp tube. So there it is. And I just want to make sure there's no gaps and that it is still moving nice and freely, and that my jump ring is still moving as well. What I'm going to do is take my magical crimping plier and give it a squeeze. And turn it and give it another squeeze and cut off that end nice and close. So there is my bracelet. It's so pretty. And there's my end there with the clasp and the 2 magical crimp beads. And you can't even tell that they aren't beads. They just look like little silver balls. There's my 5 bracelets made in a really short amount of time. The top link in the description box takes you to a blog post. It contains links for all of the materials that you need to make these 5 bracelets, as well as step-by-step instructions. So remember to check that one out as well. Check us out on Facebook and Instagram. Hit that subscribe button, the thumbs up, and the notification bell. Thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful day, and I will see you again soon.